Welcome, everybody, to Fantasy Football Today Express. Let's take a look at the waiver wire. All right, Adam Aizer and Jamey Eisenberg. Of course, on Tuesday, we're going to have an hour-long show talking about these players, talking about who to drop as well. But for now, Jamey, give me the one guy that we need to go out and get on waivers.
I think it's Marquise Brown. Just looking at the situation with the Chiefs and Xavier Worthy, we don't have a timetable yet on how long he'll miss, but it's probably going to be multiple weeks. And then you have Rashee Rice out for at least 5 more games because of the suspension. So knowing what he did in the first game against the Chargers when Worthy got injured in Brazil, 16 targets, 10 catches, 99 yards, there's going to be a lot of volume, hopefully a little bit better, a little more downfield passes. He'd have the one long reception. But I think just looking at the way the injuries are unfolding for this week, specifically in Kansas City, and what this offense could look like, Marquise Brown could be headed for a big role for maybe the next 5 games, depending on how long Worthy's going to be gone.
How would you compare him, though, with Quentin Johnston and Keenan Allen? Johnston's 36% rostered, Allen's 60% rostered.
I would expect that there's going to be more targets for Marquise Brown. And so based on that and his role in his offense, I will take him first. But I will take a look at Keenan Allen second and Quentin Johnston third. And that might be a mistake knowing that Johnston has such big playability and is coming off a strong end to the 2024 campaign, which we probably overlooked a little bit based on the Trey Harris and Lambert Smith additions in the NFL draft. But they still love him, and he looked great in week 1. And Keenan Allen's going to have a big role as well. There's a big history there, a long history there with Justin Herbert. So I think all 3 guys are viable. They're the 3 first wide receivers I have to be picked up for this week. I just prefer Marquise Brown in the short term, which may end up being a long-term situation depending on how long this Worthy injury is.
All right, breaking news, by the way, the Giants are going to start Russell Wilson in week 2. So Cowboys DST, they're available. Okay, so how about let's go to quarterbacks here and quarterbacks to stream for week 2.
So it's not necessarily streaming for week 2. I think at this point you're looking for maybe the rest of the season. And so the top 2 guys for me right now are Aaron Rodgers and Michael Penix. Daniel Jones is third, mostly because of his opponent for week 2, with the Denver Broncos. But looking at it in the long term and the short term, Rodgers, we'll see how he picks up off of the week 1 game against the Jets, where he threw for 244 yards and 4 touchdowns. I like his situation going into week 2 a little bit better against Seattle than I do for Penix, based on his matchup against against the Vikings, when he may not have Drake London, which we don't know how long he's going to be out, and we don't know if Darnell Mooney will be back. I think in the season-long situation, I would prefer Michael Penix just for the potential of what he could become. I like the fact that he uses legs a little bit, had the rushing touchdown, 21 rushing yards. So those are the top 2 quarterbacks. Daniel Jones right there with him. I just don't want to put too much stock into it because I think Miami's defense could be absolutely horrible. So if you're looking for quarterbacks moving forward, again, this is more backups to stash to see if you're going to, use them. I wouldn't start any of them if you don't have to in week 2. But it would be Rodgers, Michael Penix, Daniel Jones. Then the 4th guy would be Geno Smith.
Yeah, we used to talk about West Coast teams playing 1:00 games on the East Coast. That's what the Seahawks will be doing next week at Pittsburgh against Aaron Rodgers. But I'm just looking at what they did last year when they went to the East Coast. I don't know what time these games were, that they did totally fine. So I don't know if this is really a thing anymore, but it used to be a big thing. All right, so running backs to pick up.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's no real standout option. Dylan Sampson's the closest one, and we know Quinshon Judkins is coming back for week number 2. To what capacity, we'll find out. But I think based on his role in the passing game with 8 catches for 64 yards on 8 targets, it's hard to overlook that. That can still be hard to overlook that, and that could still be a constant for him in this Browns offense, knowing that Joe Flacco is going to be the quarterback. So I think Sampson is the one you go for first. Trey Benson would be the one I look for second, because we heard all offseason 1A, 1B in terms of the 1 and 1A, whatever. James Conner and Benson, and look, part of his 8 for 69 included a 52-yard run, I believe it was, against the Saints. But I think you look at 2 things. One, if he's going to continue to get more work when there's favorable matchups, maybe he's a flex option. And we know James Conner, 30 years old, injury history. He's a lottery ticket waiting to happen. So those would be the first 2 guys. And there's a big drop-off in terms of looking at what's next. I have Kenneth Gainwell third, just because it appears for the short term he's going to be at least the second running back of usage for the Steelers and can maybe help you in a flex spot in PPR. Did have 3 catches from Aaron Rodgers. DJ Giddens looks like the definite handcuff at this point for Jonathan Taylor. Had 12 carries. I was surprised he didn't have any targets. Good to see Taylor involved in the passing game, but obviously if something happens to Taylor, then Giddens will be the guy. And then Kendre Miller will be the next guy, just because, again, Alvin Kamara, 30 years old, missed 3 games last year with a groin injury. Miller looks like he's going to be the second guy there in the Saints offense.
Just a guess on DJ Giddens, why he didn't have targets, is he got most of his work in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
So I think Daniel
But
Jones.
I was surprised early in the game that they didn't try to do something there.
Yeah, Kenneth Gainwell did actually out-snap Jaylen Warren, and he was their third down back. So we're going to get some wide receivers to pick up, other than the three that we talked about, when we come back after this quick break on Fantasy Football Today Express. All right, welcome back. So we talked about Marquise Brown and Quentin Johnston and Keenan Allen being the top three, with Marquise Brown being number one for Jamey right now. I'm looking forward to having a nice, to kind of talking that out on the longer show tomorrow. But who else should we pick up at wide receiver?
So after Brown, Allen, and Johnston, I have it as Cedric Tillman, Rashid Shaheed, Kayshon Boutte, Calvin Austin, Ray McLeod, Jaden Higgins, Wan'Dale Robinson, Troy Franklin, and Elick.
Io-Matter. Tillman is really interesting. I mean, he was so good last year when he was healthy, when Jameis Winston took over, and he's 31% rostered. And Stephon Diggs didn't play much, played less than half the snaps. So Kayshon Boutte had a big game. But how many?
He's actually been good going back to last year with Drake May too.
How many of these guys are 12-team league players?
The two Chargers, Marquise Brown, Tillman is, Rashid Shaheed is, and then it gets to, I think, a point where it depends on what you look like for your roster. So the Drake London manager, the Christian Kirk manager, the Darnell Mooney manager, these guys that are searching for wide receiver help, potentially the Juwan Jennings manager. You might be making some moves at the end of your bench, to shuffle out a second quarterback and maybe get some wide receiver depth. For the most part, though, I don't think anybody's starting these guys in week 2, except for maybe Marquise Brown or the Chargers guys.
All right, let's go over to tight end. It was a pretty good week for tight ends that you might want to pick up off the waiver wire. I just mentioned this on Beyond the Box Score, but Juwan Johnson for the Colts, for the Saints, played 99% of the snaps and was one of the top performers. Who do you like to pick up at this position?
Yeah, I go back and forth between Harold Fannin Jr. and Juwan Johnson, because, you're looking at Fannin as, at best, I would say the third option in the passing game. He was operating basically as their third receiver. I think Jerry Jeudy will get more targets than him moving forward. I think at some point David Njoku will get more targets than him moving forward, and we'll see with Cedric Tillman. So there's a lot of mouths to feed in this Cleveland offense. With the Saints, obviously Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed are there, but I think we're going to see Spencer Rattler lean on Juwan Johnson, not to this extent, but he's going to have a role. So I'll take the upside of Fannin more at this point, more so than I would Juwan Johnson. But I think from a floor standpoint, Juwan Johnson's probably a little bit safer. But after that, there's a lot of guys that sort of fall into this category, just didn't do as well as Juwan Johnson did. I think it's worth taking a look. I know he had 15 yards receiving, but Jonnu Smith, based on how Aaron Rodgers played, he had 5 catches, got the little pop pass for the touchdown. So that's something I think to keep an eye on there for Jonnu. Hunter Henry, Brenton Strange, not huge games, but good involvement. And, looking at their quarterback situations, again, I still like Drake May despite the down game in week 1. Same thing with Trevor Lawrence. It's definitely worth your interest to pick up Isaiah Likely right now, just to see what happens with him when he comes back, coming off the foot injury. Didn't play in week 1, but could return soon. And then just a couple injury replacements, deeper leagues, just in case. If Brock Bowers' knee injury is a problem, Michael Mayer, and the situation with George Kittle, I think Jake Tongas is the guy to look at. He scored the touchdown late in the game against Seattle.
Kyle Pitts, 69% roster. I know he doesn't quite meet the criteria. You're looking at 65% or lower, but Pitts is maybe it's just about Darnell Mooney being out, but also Drake London could be out. So this is a big opportunity.
He would be the number one guy without question.
Yeah. I mean,
those guys are hurt without a doubt.
I would say the number one guy at any position, possibly, if you're looking for. If Drake London's out 2 weeks, I know it's only 2 weeks, but maybe Kyle Pitts can help you win a couple of weeks or something like that. I don't want to make.
I wish he played the way he played against Tampa Bay every week, because the last 3 games, 2 games last year, this game, he looks like a different player. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the proximity to games, though. Who knows?
One of the things is the ADOT. In terms of his career, with 4 or more targets, any game with 4 or more targets, he had the 3rd lowest ADOT of his career. I talked about it on Express, so I won't repeat myself. On Beyond the Box Score, pardon me. I won't repeat myself, but that's a good sign for Kyle Pitts. All right, we'll be right. No, we won't. We'll be back tomorrow with another edition of Fantasy Football Today. Thanks to Jamey for his early waiver wire. Make sure you check out his waiver wire column, because if there are some names that we don't get to on the show, they're included in the column. Check it out, cbssports.com/fantasy/football. See you later, everybody.